Nigel Dodds.
Deputy Speaker, and I'm very pleased, as always, to follow the honourable gentleman, the member for Canterbury, and thank him for all that he has done in the service of his country, both here and in operations. And can I also pay tribute to everyone who has spoken thus far. Now, I want to say that the right honourable member, the member for Lagan Valley, set out in a very powerful way the case, I think, that is reflected in the country at large and in terms of the approach to these issues. I want to thank the Shadow Junior Minister for his words, but in particular I want to pay tribute to the Government for having not just the Junior Minister here and representatives from the Ministry of Defence, but that the Secretary of State also has participated in this debate. I think that's appreciated by the members of the Democratic Unionist Party on these benches. I certainly give way.
Yeah. With your indulgence, Madam Deputy Speaker, can I, as I should have done earlier, apologise for the absence of my colleague, the Honourable Member for Blaydon. He is on a train somewhere in the northwest.
Right. Very mysterious.
And may I also, of course, most importantly, pay tribute to the members of our security forces, those who have served and those who continue to serve. And I, as a member in this House for North Belfast, am only too well aware of the enormous sacrifices being made over the years in terms of protecting life and limb and property in my constituency in Belfast and across Northern Ireland by the members of the security forces. And the recent example where a police officer was injured and thankfully was not seriously injured in my constituency, and also just the other day in County Londonderry, which has been referred to, shows the continuing risks that members of our security forces are at in the service of us all, and they deserve our admiration, pride and our grateful thanks. How we deal with legacy issues, Madam Deputy Speaker, in Northern Ireland is important for innocent victims and their families, first and foremost, but it is a deeper significance than just that. The way we respond to current failings, and these have been highlighted at length thus far in the process, will reflect our commitment to fairness and justice right across the United Kingdom. And there is a very real view and perception. Those who defended our communities from attack are being investigated disproportionately and with greater zeal than those who brought terror to our land. And the facts bear that out. It isn't just a perception, but I think that it has been amply demonstrated in the contribution that has been made thus far that there is substance to that perception. Many of our armed forces veterans have heard a knock on the door early in the morning, hauled in by police for interrogation about events that took place many years ago. We have heard examples from honourable members opposite of exactly that happened. Houses being invaded, searched, reputations tarnished. And we in these benches are not prepared to stand back and see those who bravely served the people of Northern Ireland and served people of this country generally in their darkest hour, hounded and unfairly vilified. We believe investigations into historical cases must be balanced and proportionate. It's wrong that our former members of the security forces are subject to a different set of rules to those who sought to do them and us harm. And the Right Honourable Member for Lagan Valley has set out how that the provisions of the Belfast Agreement gave special dispensation and special measures for paramilitaries and those who have been imprisoned, but did nothing for our security forces. That is wrong. Operation Banner, as has been mentioned, was the longest military deployment in British history. Over 250,000 men and women served in the armed forces and in the RUC during that time. It's right to emphasise again the 7,000 awards for bravery that were made, the over 1,100 security service personnel murdered in the course of their duties, countless more bearing mental and physical scars of those days. And without their dedication to making people safe, as the Secretary of State has so rightly said, and without that sacrifice, terrorism would not have been defeated and the roots of peace could not have been sown to provide where we are today. Flawed and difficult as it is, we are in a much, much better place as a result of the work and sacrifice of our security forces. So they defended us and we must defend them, never forgetting that paramilitary terrorists, both Republican and Loyalist, were responsible for some 90% of the deaths during the so-called Troubles. So how we address the issue of legacy must reflect what actually happened. No one is saying on these benches that people are above the law. And the actions of the security forces must be held to the highest levels of professionalism and, of course, must be properly investigated. And, of course, in saying that, we must also remember the difficult context in which people were operating in the security forces and in the police at the time, in a climate of fear and terror created by terrorists who went out of their way not only to target innocent civilians, but then to target and murder detectives and others who were involved in trying to investigate crime. And, of course, policing practices which, across the United Kingdom, were far removed from those that are used today. To suggest that somehow misconduct was rife is a deliberate distortion. It's a narrative of the Troubles that is not justified by the facts, and we in this House must reject such revisionism. A member said that there is a danger that the past is being rewritten, that the war is being won. Yes, there is a danger that the propaganda war can. We must not allow that to happen. We must ensure that the past is not rewritten in the way that the terrorists and their sympathisers would like to see it rewritten. Thank you very much.
I thank my right honourable friend for giving way. Just on the issue of proportionality, which is discussing now at the moment, would he agree with me that significantly less than 1% of all the people down through the years in Northern Ireland who served in the security forces, army and police were ever guilty or even questioned about possible breaches of the law, while 100% of the terrorists were most definitely guilty of breaches of the law?
Yes, the member makes a very, very important point, and it bears emphasis in this House and further afield. And it's important that these issues are made clear to people who may, as time passes from the direct reports of what happened in Northern Ireland, begin to think that somehow there was a different story, a different narrative occurred in Northern Ireland. And that's why it's absolutely important that the institutions which were being set up under the Stormont House Agreement, which the Secretary of State referred to and which my right honourable friend referred to, the Historical Investigation Unit and so on, are set up so that we can have a balanced, fair and proportionate approach to all of this, so that they will highlight the fact that we have 3,000 murders in Northern Ireland remaining unsolved, that we have acts of terrorism carried out by people like Sean Kelly, the Shankill bomber, like Michael Carher, part of the South Armagh IRA sniper team that murdered Lance Bombardier Stephen Restorick in 1997, one of the last members of the armed forces to die. He received a sentence totalling 105 years, and he walked free just after 3. And the Right Honourable Member for Lagan Valley has detailed, quite rightly, the efforts that were made by the then Labour government under John Reid and then Peter Mandelson to go to extraordinary lengths to provide concessions to IRA terrorists with no regard whatsoever to any kind of proportionality or to do anything for the security forces. And the secret deals that were done, for instance, on the runs and so on. These had a major debilitating impact on those who faced down terrorism in Northern Ireland. And our duty now is to convince them that that will not happen again. I share the view of the right honourable gentleman who spoke earlier on our behalf that this government will not repeat the mistakes that were made in the past, and that there will be no amnesty and that there will be no secret deals which will allow terrorists off the hook. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, in conclusion, I want to say that it's important that we get the Stormont House Agreement institutions up and running as quickly as possible, that we begin to get back some kind of fair and proportional system in terms of investigation of these legacy cases, and that we do not allow in any circumstances I will give way very briefly.
I thank the honourable gentleman for kindly giving way. I apologise for interrupting his peroration. Can I congratulate him and his colleagues for bringing this very, very important matter before the House this afternoon. There have been many references to IHAT, and all of us as parliamentarians need to learn difficult lessons from what happened through IHAT. We also have to appreciate the effect that has had on the armed forces, on our own veterans. Yes. Surely, after what we've all been through with IHAT, and the lessons we must now learn, the last thing we can sanction is a politically motivated witch hunt in Northern Ireland against our own brave servicemen.
Well, I'm delighted that the honourable gentleman was able to make that point. It's a very powerful point. I agree with it entirely. And the stakes, Madam Deputy Speaker, are high. There is a responsibility on those of us who are in this House to make sure that we build a society that values fairness and elevates justice and treats our veterans properly, one which upholds the proud traditions of our military as well as our commitment to democracy. And we must go forward on that basis. Thank you.